from far above. It is only a spark.
They told you heaven was above you, a kingdom in the clouds, a realm of white wings, golden gates, and a throne blazing beyond mortal sight. The Ethiopian Bible does not place heaven in the sky at all. Everything you thought you knew about paradise begins to fall apart. You step into a world most of humanity has forgotten. And you will realize why this ancient text, written in a language older than Latin, older than Arabic, describes a heaven unlike any ever preached from a Western pulpit. For centuries, the highlands of Ethiopia guarded a secret, hidden in 81 books, recorded in ink that has outlived empires. A vision of heaven, so different, so radical, so disorienting, that the world never integrated it into mainstream Christianity. According to the Ethiopian Bible, heaven is not distant. It is not floating. It is not unreachable. Heaven is beside you. Heaven is around you. Heaven is woven through the world you walk every day. No angels with feathers. No towering pearly gates. No shining king watching from galaxies away. Instead, fields of living green rivers that remember your name and beings of pure presence. Without bodies, without wings, without form. If this is true, then whose version of heaven have we been believing? And why was this perspective silenced, forgotten, or dismissed as an anomaly? We are the seekers who pry open the sealed pages, the ones who believe truth is not handed down. It must be recovered from the ruins of memory. Tonight, we unlock a door the world nearly abandoned. A door carved in Gez ink. A door into a paradise unlike anything you've ever imagined. Follow its light. To understand why the Ethiopian Bible describes heaven so differently, you must first understand the land that refused to kneel. Ethiopia, ancient, unbroken, fierce in its faith, was the only nation in Africa never fully colonized. Not even the great empires of Europe, armed with cannons, armies, and centuries of ambition, could erase its memory or rewrite its sacred imagination. This is the first crack in the story the world never told you. For thousands of years, while kingdoms rose and fell like breaths of dust, Ethiopia guarded its theology as a lion guards its cubs. Rome shaped Christianity for the West. Constantinople shaped it for the East. But Ethiopia shaped Christianity for itself. No council, no emperor, no foreign power ever dictated what its scriptures should contain or what heaven should look like. And that right here is the wave that begins everything. Ethiopia's vision of heaven survived because no empire could conquer its mind. In the highlands of Aksum, once one of the most powerful civilizations, in the ancient world, faith was not imported. It was inherited. It was sung in Ge'ez chants that echoed off stone pillars. It was carved into the obelisks that scraped the sky like the memories of giants. And it was woven into royal bloodlines that dared to claim descent from Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. A shocking claim, yes, but a claim Ethiopia built an entire national identity upon. According to the Kebra Nagast Makeda, Queen of Sheba journeyed across desert and sea, not for gold or treaties, but for wisdom. She returned carrying a lineage the empire would guard as its heart. For Ethiopia, faith was not something adopted, it was something birthed. And because of this, no outside authority held the scissors that cut their canon. While the Western world eventually accepted 66 books, Ethiopia preserved 81. 81 ancient voices, 81 windows into the unseen. 81 reasons their heaven could not and would not look like anyone else's. When you add more books, you don't just expand doctrine. You reshape the sky. Where others saw a distant throne, Ethiopia saw a living landscape. Where others imagined angels as winged warriors, Ethiopia described shimmering presences without form. Where others lifted their eyes upward, Ethiopians stepped sideways into a heaven that touches the earth like mist touches stone. And it all began with those extra pages the world forgot. Imagine holding a Bible that was never edited to fit European theology. Imagine reading scriptures untouched by Rome, unfiltered by Renaissance art, unaltered by medieval councils. Imagine discovering that heaven, in its earliest telling, was not a palace above the clouds, but a place as familiar as the mountains outside your window. In Ethiopia, faith remained intact because history itself failed to conquer it. The Muslims came, the Europeans came, invaders came, but none could rewrite what was written in Ge'ez. The language survived, the canon survived, the vision survived. If a nation preserved its theology independently for over a millennium, then its depiction of heaven might be closer to an older, forgotten memory of the early church one that predates Europe, predates councils, predates the imagery we inherited. What if Ethiopia's heaven is not different? What if it is original? Let that question sit with you. Because Ethiopia's independence did not just protect land, it protected cosmology. Unlike empires that treated heaven as a royal court in the sky, Ethiopia imagined heaven as an ecosystem of divine presence. Not a monarchy, not a military fortress, a world intertwined with this one. Every mountain peak, every river, every fragment of wind became a reminder that heaven is not far, that the divide between seen and unseen is thinner than breath. And perhaps this is why their heaven feels so alive, because it was never forced into foreign shapes. But the story grows deeper still. Ethiopia's Bible contains books banned elsewhere, books Western scholars considered apocrypha, books that speak of celestial realms in metaphors unfamiliar to European Christianity, books that describe layer upon layer of heaven, each more mysterious than the last, books that refuse to accept the narrow corridors of later theological traditions. Ethiopia never surrendered its imagination, and now the world begins to wonder whether surrendering ours was the mistake. Before we move on, let this be a moment of reflection, for our journey is not merely historical but personal. If you have ever sensed that something was missing from the heaven you were taught, if you have ever felt that the story could not be as small as it seemed, you are not alone on this path. This exploration belongs to all of us. Now step with me, because if Ethiopia protected the key, then the next part will show what door it was meant to unlock. And that door opens into a heaven unlike any ever painted in the West. In most of the world, heaven is imagined as escape. A ladder out of the dust, an elevator into the clouds, a final goodbye to everything that ever hurt you. But in the Ethiopian imagination, shaped by mountains and ancient scripture, heaven is not an exit. It is an upgrade. In Ethiopian tradition, heaven is not somewhere else. It is this world healed, this soil restored, this creation finally allowed to become what it was always meant to be. Not clouds, but a valley so green, it feels like memory and prophecy at the same time. Rivers that move with a kind of gentle intelligence, as if they know where every soul has been wounded. Trees that do not merely stand, but seem to listen. The air itself carrying a sense of presence, as though the world is quietly aware of you. No clouds, no golden pyramids, no gemstone palaces built for the ego of a distant king. In much of Western art, heaven is a city of marble, glass, and gold. A place of escape, of reward, of being lifted out and away. But in the Ethiopian Bible's world of thought, heaven is not a luxury resort in the sky. It is creation transfigured, not discarded. The earth is not burned and replaced, it is healed and revealed. And that changes everything. Because if heaven is the perfection of this world rather than the destruction of it, then every field, every mountain, every human face becomes a hint of eternity. Now turn your eyes to the beings who inhabit this realm. You were told angels have feathers. You grew up with paintings of beings in white robes and swan unlike wings stretching across the sky. But in Ethiopian mystical theology, angels often appear as presence before they are ever described as shape. They are not male or female. They do not age. They do not flap across the sky like birds. They arrive as intensity, a blaze of awareness, a column of quiet fire, a voice without a mouth, a message without a body. In this vision, an angel does not come closer by moving through space. It comes closer by tuning itself to your soul, by aligning realities rather than crossing distances. The shift is not in geography, but in perception. You are not watching something fly toward you. You are being drawn into a deeper layer of the same space. To Western imagination, this feels abstract. To Ethiopian spirituality, it feels obvious. If heaven is not somewhere else, why would its messengers need wings? And at the center of this world, how is God imagined? Not as a far-off sovereign, barricaded behind layers of ceremony. Not as an emperor on a staircase of light guarded by choirs you can never join. Instead, many Ethiopian homilies and prayers speak of God walking among his people as in Eden. Not in nostalgic memory, but in future fulfillment. God as a father weaving through the fields of a restored creation. God as a presence that saturates the landscape rather than ruling from a distance. No towering throne room that keeps you small. No sense that you must shout your prayers upward and hope they break through a ceiling of silence. In this telling, God is not up there. God is here, and heaven is the moment you finally realize it. The distance between God and humanity dissolves, not by dragging God down, but by lifting creation into what it was always intended to be. The barrier is not height, but blindness, and heaven is the healing of that blindness. If heaven is not escape, but fulfillment. If angels are not winged strangers, but intimate presences. If God is not a king behind locked doors, but a father walking among his children, then maybe the deepest ache in you has never been for another world, but for this world made whole. And if you've ever felt, even for a heartbeat, that heaven might be closer than you were taught, like a song you almost remember, like a touch just beyond the edge of thought, that sensation is exactly what this tradition dares to name. This is not fantasy. It is a different inheritance. And as different as it sounds, we have only traced the surface. Because in the Ethiopian Bible's wider universe, heaven is not just one realm, but many layered, ascending each more mysterious than the last. You've seen that heaven is not above the clouds. In the next part, you'll follow the path that climbs through its hidden levels. Step further. The journey into the seven heavens begins now. The Ethiopian Bible does not speak of heaven as a single flat realm. It whispers of layers. 7 vast movements in a symphony of the unseen, each one drawing the soul deeper into the heart of God. The journey begins in Sakai. Sakai is not a throne room. It is a garden, not the manicured paradise of painted postcards, but a living, breathing landscape where the air itself feels like relief. Imagine stepping into a valley where your chest finally loosens, where the weight you carried so long you forgot it was there simply falls away. Heaven in this telling does not begin with glory. It begins with release. Sakai is the threshold where the soul awakens to the reality that death was not an end, but a crossing. The fields seem to remember you. The wind feels like a welcome. There is no trumpet blast, no royal announcement, only the quiet shock of realizing I am still alive. And I'm more myself than I have ever been. From there, the path rises into Kayama. In much of Western imagination, any realm between earth and heaven is a place of punishment, fire, torment, fear. But Ethiopian tradition turns the knife the other way. Kayama is a place of cleansing without cruelty. No flames licking at your heels, no demons dragging chains, no threats echoing from a distant judge. Here the soul sees its own wounds clearly and is healed, not harmed. The pain is not inflicted from outside. It is the ache of infection leaving the body. The Ethiopian vision dares to say purification does not require terror. God does not need to torture what he intends to transform. Then the path climbs into Ma'at. If Sakai heals your exhaustion and Kayama heals your scars, Ma'at heals your questions. Imagine a realm described as a treasury not of gold, but of wisdom. Every unresolved why you whispered into your pillow, every late-night doubt you never dared to say aloud, hangs here like unopened scrolls. In Ma'at, you are not shamed for asking. You are invited. Here in the Ethiopian imagination, truth is not a weapon. It is food. You do not lose your mind in heaven. You find it. And for the first time, you taste what it means to know without fear. Beyond Ma'at lies Baran. Baran is called a realm of light, but not the kind we know. On earth, light creates shadows. Every brightness has an underside. But in Baran, there is no such division. There is no darkness, but there is also no light as our eyes understand it. Instead, there is understanding, a radiance of meaning. You do not see things, you see through them. In Baran, the soul no longer stumbles between partial truths. It moves in clarity. The Ethiopian vision suggests that heaven's light is less about brightness and more about absolute honesty. And then comes Meus. Here, something even more terrifying and beautiful happens. Up to this point, the soul still has desires, still has preferences, still has its own will. In Meus, that begins to dissolve, not as an erasure, but as a merging. At this level, the soul does not stop wanting. It discovers that what it truly wants is exactly what God wants. Your will is not crushed, it is completed. The lifelong war between what I want and what God wants ceases to exist. There is only one movement left, one desire, one direction. Meus is not the death of personhood. It is the end of inner conflict. After Meus, words begin to fail. Zeles is described in terms that sound almost like modern physics. It is the realm of primordial sound, the vibration beneath all things. Imagine hearing the note that was struck at creation, the frequency that holds galaxies together. Here, heaven is not seen, but heard. Not with ears, with being. Zeles tells us reality itself is music, and heaven is harmony with that original song. Then finally, the path reaches Ara. Ara is not another room. It is a brink, a horizon, a line so thin it can barely be called a line at all. Here, the distinction between creator and creation feels as close as a whisper against skin, a place where the boundary between the soul and God is reduced to a single breath. No, the soul does not become God, but it stands as near as a creature can stand, without vanishing into fire. If any of these heavens has brushed against something deep in you, let it leave a trace. Write what you felt, not to explain it, but to mark that you were here, that your heart recognized something. Because we have climbed the map of the seven heavens, we will step back and ask, what kind of universe must exist for such a map to be possible? In the Ethiopian vision, the heavens we just walked through are not built out of anything you can touch. No gold, no pearl gates, no marble streets. Everything you were told to expect as proof of paradise, the precious metals, the shining architecture, the priceless jewels, is absent. Not because heaven is poor, but because heaven is so rich, it no longer needs symbols of wealth. In much of Western imagination, matter is upgraded in heaven. Dirt becomes crystal stone, becomes glass roads, become gold. But in the Ethiopian afterlife, matter is not the main actor at all. It is like a costume that has served its purpose and is gently folded away. Matter yields the stage to something else, entirely consciousness, communion, and presence. Here, identity is not defined by what you own, what you wear, or even what you look like. Identity becomes the flavor of your soul. its unique way of reflecting the one who made it. And because matter has stepped aside, movement itself is redefined. You do not travel on Earth. No walking, no flying, no crossing distances step by step or wing beat by wing beat. The Ethiopian mystical tradition hints at something far stranger and far more intimate. The soul moves by awakening. You do not go closer to God by covering miles. You go closer by becoming more like Him. Every shift in awareness, every deepening of love, every widening of understanding is a journey, not through space, but through reality. The landscapes change because you change. As the soul expands, so does the world it can perceive. If that is true, then the real distance between you and heaven has never been measured in meters, but in likeness. And then there is time. On Earth, time is a straight line, a relentless arrow. We are born at one end and vanish at the other. Our past haunts us. Our future intimidates us. The present slips through our fingers. But in the Ethiopian imagination, as reflected in its layered heavens, time stops behaving like a line at all. It curls, it spirals. It bends back upon itself like a river that refuses to flow in only one direction. In such a universe, memories are not lost to the rearview mirror. They can be revisited in new light. Future possibilities are not sealed away ahead. They can be tasted in advance. The soul, no longer trapped in the one-dimensional march of seconds, experiences life as a tapestry rather than a chain. This is not chaos. It is completion. What we call before and after on Earth are simply different angles on the same eternal present. Heaven is not endless time. Heaven is fullness of time. And what about status? Who is important there? On Earth, we rank each other. Titles, wealth, influence, race, power. These become ladders we climb or are forced to stand beneath. We imagine heaven as the same structure, just varnished with holiness, higher thrones, higher crowns, closer seats. But the Ethiopian vision undermines the entire idea. Without material hierarchies, without thrones made of stone or crowns made of metal, the soul is not seated above or below others in any physical sense. Instead, each soul is like a point of light in a great network, shining with its own hue, contributing to a single harmony. No one blocks another's view. No one's glory diminishes anyone else's. The closest thing to rank is depth of love. The more a soul participates in the heart of God, the more fully it radiates. Not to dominate, but to illuminate. In this world, greatness is not the ability to stand above it, is the capacity to belong more completely. A heaven beyond matter, beyond linear time, beyond rigid rank. A cosmos where movement is awakening and power is measured in love. It sounds like mysticism. It sounds like poetry. But in Ethiopia, it also sounds like home. So where did such a daring vision come from? Why did this land, out of all places on earth, dare to imagine a heaven so near, so fluid, so unchained from gold and thrones? To answer that, we have to go back down the mountain and look carefully at the world beneath their feet. In Ethiopia, heaven is not an abstract doctrine. It is written into the land. Stand on the edge of the Simeon Highlands in your mind. The air is thin, sharp, almost electric. The horizon stretches like a torn veil, and below your feet, far below, clouds drift in valleys like slow rivers of white. Here the sky is not above you, it is beside you. When you live where the clouds lie under your sandals, up and down, stop meaning what they mean in other places. Heaven is no longer a ceiling you gaze at from far beneath. It becomes a world that presses in from all sides, a nearness you can almost touch. In Ethiopia, the sky is not overhead, it is level with your life. So it should not surprise us that the Ethiopian vision of heaven is not distant or vertical. It is horizontal, woven into valleys, carved into rock, mirrored in stone. Look at Lalibela. Entire churches carved downward into the earth, hewn from a single block of living rock. Not built upward to pierce the sky, but hollowed out, as though someone were trying to reveal the sacred hidden inside the world itself. These are not monuments of escape. They are confessions in stone. God is here inside the rock, inside the soil, inside the story of this land. Their theology followed their geography. While other cultures built towering cathedrals reaching upward, the Ethiopians dug sacred spaces downward and inward. They did not try to climb out of creation. They tried to unveil the holiness within it. It is a physical sermon. You do not have to leave the world to find heaven. You have to learn how to see the world correctly. Their faith did not begin by staring into empty sky, but by listening to the mountains, the winds, the stories of their ancestors. Add to this the deep interweaving of traditions. Ancient Judaic practices carried through legends of the Ark, local African spiritual sensibilities, and early Christianity all met in this landscape. Sabbath lamps burning in mud huts, psalms echoing through stone corridors, incense rising not as a signal to a far-off God, but as a sign that heaven and earth are already sharing the same air. In villages, faith has always been communal. Meals, shared prayers, chanted feasts celebrated together. This shapes a heaven that is not about individual reward, but about collective harmony. If your whole life is built around the we, why would your afterlife be obsessed with the eye on the plateau? Survival depends on community. Farmers share water, families share labor, neighbors share risk. The harshness of climate and terrain forces people to stand together or fall apart. Over centuries, this formed a spiritual instinct. Salvation is not a solo climb, it is a shared ascent. So their heaven reflects that. Not rows of isolated mansions, each believer sealed in private glory, but a network of souls shining together. Not a king aloof on a dais, but a presence moving through the midst of a people who belong to one another as much as to him. Pause and reach into your own memory. If you have ever stood on a hill at dawn or walked alone at night and suddenly felt that the air around you was watching, listening, waiting, if you have ever had a moment where heaven felt close, not above, but around, that was not a random feeling. If you have ever felt the sky closer than usual, share it. That is not just a memory, that is a clue. Because in Ethiopia, those moments are not dismissed as imagination. They are treated as hints, signposts that the veil between worlds is thin, especially in certain places, especially at certain times. Geography carved their imagination. Mountains taught them that height is relative. Clouds beneath their feet taught them that the heavens can be below as easily as above. Rock-hewn churches taught them to seek God within the world, not apart from it. Community taught them that no one is saved alone. And from this soil, their vision of heaven grew organic, embodied, relational. But what does this say about God himself? What kind of God would design a universe like this, a heaven, and so near a creation, so permeated with presence? To answer that, we have to let theology catch up with landscape. In Ethiopian theology, heaven is not just another place. It is the true face of reality finally unveiled. There is no clean split between spiritual and physical, between soul and body, between here and there. In Ethiopian theology, there is no hard dualism, no sharp divide that makes the soul holy and the body disposable. This does not mean the body is perfect as it is, or that matter is God. It means that God created the whole person, flesh, mind, and spirit, as a single harmony. Sin may distort that harmony, but salvation does not discard the body. It restores the whole. So when the Ethiopian Bible speaks of heaven, it is not describing a ghostly escape, but a healed creation, where the visible and invisible finally agree. Heaven in this vision is not the opposite of earth. It is earth fulfilled. It is flesh glorified. It is spirit embodied. God is not up or out there. He permeates every fiber of creation. This is not a vague pantheism that blurs everything into God, but a fierce conviction that God is closer than our own breath. The Psalms that echo through Ethiopian monasteries speak of a Lord who fills the heavens and the earth, who rides on the clouds, yet hears the cry in the smallest hut. If God is truly everywhere, then there is no neutral space. Every moment is potentially sacred. Every place can become a doorway. This is why their heaven is not confined to a distant realm. It bleeds into mountains, into liturgies, into bread and wine, into daily life. The line between worship and existence grows thin. Because God's presence is not reserved for a special zone, it saturates the whole map. Salvation is not just a private escape route, it is a collective healing. In many Western frameworks, the question is, will I go to heaven? The focus is on the individual soul, its choices, its destiny. But in the Ethiopian imagination, shaped by communal life and shared survival, salvation has a wider horizon. A person is never just a person. They are a son, a daughter, a neighbor, a member of a people. Sin fractures relationships. Salvation repairs them. Salvation is not merely God and an isolated soul signing a private contract. It is the restoration of a wounded community, even a wounded creation. In this light, heaven is not a gated community of spiritual elites. It is a reconciled family, humanity and creation drawn back into right relationship with their Creator and with one another. And what about the beings we call angels? Here again, the Ethiopian perspective cuts deeper than familiar images. Angels are not imagined as a separate race of feathered creatures flapping through cosmic corridors. They are understood more as modes of God's self-disclosure forms in which His presence and will touch the world. Angels are not primarily creatures. They are manifestations of divine presence. God sends Gabriel not as an outsourced messenger hired from a heavenly company, but as a focused expression of His own communication. When the tradition speaks of ranks and hosts, it is not talking about celestial bureaucracy. It is describing the many ways God goes out toward His creation without ever leaving Himself. This changes how we think of distance. If angels are expressions of God's nearness, not just heavenly middlemen, then every true encounter with goodness, with clarity, with a word that cuts to the core, may be closer to angelic presence than we realize. A universe without hard dualism, a salvation that heals the group, not just the lone believer, a God who saturates creation instead of supervising it from afar. Angels as forms of His approach rather than strangers with wings. Taken together, these ideas transform heaven from a far-off reward into the deepest structure of reality, one that is already pressing against the thin walls of our present life. But this raises a haunting question. If heaven is this near, this woven into the fabric of existence, why do we feel so far from it? In the next part, we will bring this vision into our own age, science, trauma time, and the aching world we inhabit. And ask, what does an Ethiopian heaven say to a 21st century soul? We live in an age of equations and telescopes, data and doubt. We send machines beyond the planets, trace the echo of the Big Bang, map the brain, as if it were a starfield of neurons. And still beneath all our progress, the same old ache remains. Where is heaven in a universe like this? For many, the more we learn, the smaller heaven seems to become pushed back, pushed out, reduced to a private comfort or a metaphor for hope. But the Ethiopian vision does something different. It does not fight science. It stands beside it and whispers, "You are looking at the same mystery from another angle." Time as a spiral. A universe made of vibrations. Many things Ethiopia believed centuries ago now sound eerily close to modern theories. Think of Zel as the realm of primordial sound, the vibration beneath all realities. Long before anyone spoke of string theory, quantum fields, or cosmic background radiation, Ethiopian mystics were already describing creation as built on a kind of original resonance, not as a technical model, but as a spiritual intuition. Beneath matter, there is music. Our scientists tell us that everything we touch is at its core. Patterns of energy fields, oscillating waves, interacting. Our theologians from Ethiopia tell us that everything we are is at its core patterns of relationship. Love, expanding wills, converging souls, awakening. Different languages, same suspicion. Reality is not solid. It is alive. And what about time? Modern physics hints that time is not as straightforward as we once believed. Relativity bends it. Quantum mechanics blurs it. Our experience of time fractures under trauma, loss, longing. Past events haunt us as if they were still present. Future fears suffocate us as if they had already happened. Now listen again to the Ethiopian mapping of heaven, where time no longer runs in a straight line, but folds and loops, where past and future can be revisited in the light of God's eternal now. It is not the same as a scientific theory, but it rhymes with one. Maybe heaven is not so much a place we travel to, as a state we must be adjusted to see. Think of a radio surrounded by invisible signals. Unless it is tuned to the right frequency, the air seems empty. But once aligned, voices and music appear not from nowhere, but from a world that was already there. The Ethiopian picture of heaven works like that. Heaven is not an object moving toward you from outer space. Heaven is the deeper dimension of the reality you already inhabit. Sin, fear, pride, these do not throw heaven away. They throw you out of tune. Salvation, then, is not just a ticket to another location. It is the slow, painful retuning of the soul until it resonates with the music that has been playing all along. And suddenly, spiritual life is no longer about escaping the world, despising the body, or abandoning history. It becomes about learning to see correctly, to love rightly, to move in harmony with a universe drenched in God. The Ethiopian heaven reminds us the purpose of being spiritual is not to flee the world, but to see the world through the eyes of God. Imagine what this does to daily life. Every act of justice becomes a rehearsal for the justice of heaven. Every moment of mercy becomes a preview of its mercy. Every time you forgive, tell the truth, protect the vulnerable, care for the earth, you are not just obeying a rule. You are training your soul to recognize the atmosphere of another world. Science tells us our choices ripple through neural pathways, echo through ecosystems, shape the trajectory of the future. Ethiopian theology tells us those same choices ripple through eternity, aligning us with heaven or estranging us from it. In such a universe, faith is not anti-science. Faith is the courage to say the data of the heart is also real. So the ancient Ethiopian voice calls into our digital century with a question. If heaven is nearer than we think, if eternity is humming beneath our ordinary days, then how should we live here and now? Because this vision does not leave us staring at the sky. It sends us back into our families, our neighborhoods, our broken world with a challenge. If heaven is already woven into reality, what will you do with the slice of reality that has been given to you? Finally, we will return to the core question: why does the Ethiopian Bible describe heaven so differently? And what does that difference demand from the way we live today? Maybe the heaven of Ethiopia is not the picture you grew up with. No clouds, no marble palaces, no endless choir frozen in a single hymn. But sometimes the images the world forgets are the very ones carrying the light you've been searching for. For centuries, Ethiopian Christians prayed in Ge'ez, read from an 81-book canon, and sang of a heaven that was not far away, not abstract, not detached. Their theology grew out of Scripture, early Christian tradition, and the land beneath their feet, highlands, where sky and earth sit side by side. While councils in other parts of the world argued over formulas, this tradition quietly guarded a different memory of paradise. Heaven for them was not the opposite of earth. It was earth healed, creation restored, a relationship mended rather than a universe abandoned. We have seen their seven heavens, a garden of relief, a cleansing without cruelty, a treasury of wisdom, a realm of pure union of wills, a universe built on sound, and a final threshold where creator and creation meet as close as a breath, without ever becoming the same. We have listened as geography carved theology mountains, teaching that up and down are relative rock-hewn churches, preaching that God is found by going inward, not just upward. We've heard the heartbeat of a faith that refuses to separate body from soul, individual from community, world from God's presence. And now, standing at the end of this journey, one truth rises quietly above the rest. Heaven is not different. It is simply bigger than our imagination has allowed. The Ethiopian Bible does not contradict the hope of other Christians. It widens it. Its vision does not cancel the promises of Scripture cherished elsewhere. It stretches them, fills in margins we forgot were there. Where some traditions saw one angle of the diamond, Ethiopia turned it slowly, patiently, until new colors appeared. What if the Western Golden City and the Ethiopian living landscape are not rival maps, but two sketches of the same country from different vantage points? And what if every description, every throne, every field, every river, every song is only a shadow drawn on the wall of a reality too bright to stare at directly? We might be like children drawing the sun with yellow crayons, never realizing that what we are trying to capture could swallow whole galaxies in its fire. The Ethiopian tradition whispers all our images are parables, useful, needed, beautiful, and incomplete. The true heaven, the real presence of God, is not contained by any single culture's art, any single church's metaphors, any single age's imagination. Every picture is a window. None of them are the sky. And yet, this matters. Because the heaven you expect shapes the life you live. If you believe heaven is escape, you may spend your days trying to flee. If you believe heaven is reward, you may turn faith into a transaction. But if you begin to believe, as Ethiopia has for centuries, that heaven is God's nearness, saturating a healed creation, that salvation is the mending of relationships and the restoring of all things, then how you pray, how you forgive, how you treat the world around you will begin to change. You are no longer preparing to abandon the earth. You are rehearsing for its renewal. There is a strange, quiet power in knowing that the line between now and eternity may be thinner than you were taught. That every act of love, every hidden act of mercy, every moment you choose truth over comfort is not wasted effort in a doomed world, but a thread in a tapestry that will one day be revealed in full light. Heaven in the Ethiopian telling is not waiting at the far end of time with arms crossed. It is leaning towards you in every moment, pressing through cracks in reality, hinting, calling, pulling. And perhaps the real question is no longer, will I go to heaven? But will I allow heaven to reshape me now, so that when its fullness comes, I recognize the one who fills it? Maybe that is the door no artist can fully paint, no theologian can fully define, no language can fully hold. A door not drawn on any map, not carved in any wall, but opening even now, in the deepest place inside you. Heaven is larger than our pictures, brighter than our metaphors, closer than our fears. And somewhere in a monastery lit by flickering candles and the ancient sound of Gyes, a page turns, a prayer rises, and an old truth continues to echo. The world you see is not all there is, and the heaven you expect may be far too small. We have walked through a forgotten map of heaven, from the highlands of Ethiopia to the seven unseen realms, from rock-hewn churches to a universe woven with the nearness of God. If there is one truth left glowing at the center, it is this: heaven is not just a destination far away. It is a deeper way of seeing the world you already stand in. This chapter of the journey is ending, but what it awakens in you does not have to. If something in this vision stirred you, challenged you, or quietly comforted you, let it speak. Share your thoughts, your questions, your own glimpses of heaven in the comments below. Your voice is part of this investigation, part of this living archive of faith and mystery. If you wish to keep traveling with us through lost books, hidden traditions, and the untold stories of Scripture, you can like this video, share it with someone who needs a bigger heaven, and subscribe so you don't miss the next door that opens. Because this was only one angle of eternity. In the next video, another forgotten light is waiting. And the mystery of God is still unfolding just beyond the edge of what we think